Steve Schmidt, our friend Jack Jacobs keeps using the word obscene to describe this week, and we know why he's saying that, because at the heart of this story, four of our best dead in a field in Central Africa. At the heart of this story, what it's like to be a Gold Star family in this country turned into an obscene distraction. I want to get your take on what's been happening this week and what we witnessed there in the briefing room today.
Well, first off, obscene is exactly the right for it. It is an obscene display. I can't think of a more disgusting moment in American politics in my lifetime than the one we have fallen into this sewer over these issues. The person who did it, of course, is the President of the United States, Donald Trump, who sought to make himself look good by disparaging his predecessor's commitments to the families of fallen American heroes who gave what Lincoln described as the last full measure of devotion to the country. As for the press secretary and her appallingly ignorant statement, perhaps she is unaware of the National Security Advisor, Lieutenant General H.R. McMaster's dissertation, Dereliction of Duty. She should read it. She should understand the necessity in a free society of questioning four-star generals. H.R. McMaster did when he wrote the book focusing on, from his perspective, the dereliction of the senior officer corps of the United States military, who was serially dishonest with both the political leadership and the American people over the conduct of that war, 1966, 67, 68. And it was officers like General McCaffrey who rebuilt the reputation of the United States military and made it today the only institution in this country that has grown in the esteem of the American people, while every other institution in the country has collapsed and lost the trust of the American people. So when we think about rebuilding trust, the lessons of the military are fundamental to understanding how to do it. Lastly, General Kelly served in uniform for 46 years. 46 years. A man of unbelievable respect. Not a bad word ever said about General Kelly. Someone known for his rectitude, for his probity. This is what happens when you're in a White House in close proximity to Donald Trump for under 90 days. This is a sad moment for General Kelly. What I would advise him to do is not to apologize publicly, but privately, in keeping with the man who we all know who he is. Pick up the phone to the Congresswoman, do the right thing, and then order everybody in the White House to stop talking about this forever and ever. But let's also remember that it was Donald Trump who attacked a Gold Star family at the Republican convention. It was Donald Trump who attacked the service of John McCain and his fellow prisoners of war. It was Donald Trump who desecrated the clandestine memorial of fallen CIA officers by talking about his crowd sizes and the size of his election victory. It was Donald Trump who talked about there being some good Nazis. It was Donald Trump over and over and over and over again who has taken us into this sewer, who has taken our discourse in this country and lowered it. And right when we think we can't go any lower, he finds a way to get us into another basement full of sewage. And so General Kelly should use his authority in that White House to bring this obscenity to an end before we start another week going down this rabbit hole.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.